just the way he talks about how, you got to go tell this whole story before you eat. There's food.
Yeah, he goes, we read. We goes, sit down. They hand out pamphlets like we read for 2 hours. He's like, 2 hours. He's like, I'm Italian. I have to have bread 11 seconds after I sit down.
And there's no bread. It's all pasta.
Awesome.
So,
well, thanks for everybody being here. And Scott and I discuss our vacations.
Well, I want to jump into crypto for a minute before we bring everybody up on stage.
I did not even look today. What's the markets doing?
Yeah, well, last I looked, it was 62. So it's just it just seems like
it's sideways the last week or so.
Yeah, taking a pause. I mean, I kind of figured once the halving came into play, it would kind of leap up, but it's just kind of taking a pause. And some of the other ancillary, Ethereum, Solana, they've dropped. I mean, Solana was down to about 135 today, which is still a whole lot better than it was a year and a half ago when it was 14. But
you know what it is, Scott? If you look at the halving, the last two halvings, it's immediately after the halving, really nothing happens. In fact, sometimes it goes down. It's really 6, 12, and 18 months later is when you see the real steady uptick. And that's the guidance I've given everybody, which is it's not about this week or this month. It's what happens over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
And you have to be a little bit patient. That's all.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are not as a society patient anymore.
We're just not. We're like, well, the halving happened yesterday. Why is my money not?
Right, exactly. But, in 6 to 12 months really isn't even playing a long game. It's just,
Scott, did you happen to see, are you a 60 Minutes guy at all?
Not really.
So I'll send it to you. There was, on 60 Minutes last night, they interviewed the CEO of NVIDIA.
I've seen him, Brandon Wang. I've seen him.
Brandon Wang. And he talks about now NVIDIA, I didn't know this, last week became one of only 3 companies in the world that have a $2 trillion market cap. And they are Microsoft, Google. 4 companies. Microsoft, Google, what's the third one? Not Alphabet, and now NVIDIA. NVIDIA's got a $2 trillion market cap. But he talks about the fact that he founded NVIDIA like 25 years ago. And the company almost went out of business twice, bankrupt once. Everybody hated it when it went public, and now it's one of the largest companies in the history of mankind. These things take time, man. They just do.
They do. Yeah.
They just take time. And, people forget that they talk about Elon like he's the second coming. People forget that he literally almost went bankrupt at Tesla twice. The company almost went under multiple times.
Yep.
And he had to put his personal money into it to keep it afloat. So, I don't know. I would liken it the same thing with crypto. These things take time, man.
Yeah, well, like I was kind of saying, it's a year to 18 months really isn't even a long game. It's not. Look, if you bought a stock tomorrow and in a year it doubled or tripled, you'd be pretty happy, right?
Right.
So, it's just the way it is. So
I'm with you, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's. I know Corey has been patient. I've spoken to Corey a couple times on the internet over this week. So, Corey, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Nice to meet you. You're on mute, so take yourself off mute.
There you
go. Turn your camera on so we can see you. We can see your
Corey,
face.
how you doing?
There we go.
Good. How are y'all?
Good. Can't complain for Monday. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
No. Glad you're here. Can you turn your camera on?
Yes, sir. I'm working on it.
You don't have to, but we prefer to see your face.
So, Corey, what brings you to Entre? What are you working on, man?
I'm super excited to be here. I would like to get these settings set up, and then
sure.
I am not sure.
No problem.
All right. You want us to come back to you, or how
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you are. Okay, you want to do a pitch? Okay. No,
Cool.
this is great.
Now we can see your screen, Corey.
Yeah, we love pitches.
Yeah, I don't know why the camera's not working.
That's okay. You can still share it. You can share your
I
screen
guess-
and go through your pitch.
Since y'all were just talking, well, before I start, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Steve, for having me and for giving me the floor and giving me an opportunity to present. I'm super excited. Before I jump to what I'm working on, I did.
Corey, your audio.
Your audio's cutting in and out, Corey.
Yeah. Hey, are you on Chrome?
Corey?
Hey, Corey, are you on Chrome? All right. Hey, Corey, we're gonna go over to Janine, and we'll come back to you. Okay. We'll see if you can get yourself straightened out, and we'll get with Janine. We'll come back to you. Hey, Janine.
Hi, Janine.
Hey, how's it going?
It's
You know, for
going
Monday, living a dream. You?
right.
Yeah, I still there was a meltdown somewhere in the middle term between when I was like everything is awesome and it's coming soon, and then I since recovered from that. So I guess that's the pattern how it goes. But anyways, so I'm working to close an opportunity that's really exciting to me, and I'll just kind of go through what it is briefly and get your thoughts, and also like ask some of my questions around how all this works. So I'm helping someone who I've befriended who's kind of an academic type person. He was a professor at George Mason, and then he has been chief learning officer for some big organizations, including the American College of Chest Physicians. He created his own company to apply the lean startup methodology. He targeted it at associations, but this person has created significant curriculum, materials, thought leadership, all these. He has the stuff to sell, but he was targeting a market that's not ready, and he also just wasn't selling it. Like between the market not being ready and him literally not really pounding the pavement to sell.
Okay.
So I convinced him that business coaches and consultants were a natural fit. And there's a good indicator based on 10 coaches and consultants, well, specifically strategy consultants, showed up at my prospective clients' free community event in January. So he like marketed it to associations, but he got 10 consultants instead. So it's obviously a natural solution for them. They can get a lot of value creating products. I mean, I'm sure you guys hear this all the time. That's the dream, right? You have a service business and you want a product so you can scale your income, go live at the beach. Yay. Okay.
Absolutely correct.
So, right. So I'm on a really good track here with this. My proposal was very thorough. I did a lot of work within the proposal that in other cases may have been in the paid engagement, but I completely did the value map for this prospective client to just show him that there's real value for this customer segment.
Okay.
So, the goal at this point, the scope of the engagement is that there's a specific offer. Part of the offer is 2 workshop sessions that are going to be in July. So there's some other pieces of the offer, including the course and access to the prospective client, but the workshop is sort of the deadline, obviously, for people signing up, because then they need to get in the workshop. So it's all scoped out. It's all scoped out for me to help him with marketing and sales during that time frame. So first of all, the way that I'm going to go about this is that any KPIs we set in the beginning, when it comes to sales and marketing, I'm calling them preliminary KPIs. And then I'm going to have the prospective client do 5 interviews himself, 5 customer interviews within the first 3 weeks. And then we're going to go back and review all of the KPIs. The overarching KPI of this whole thing is to get 10 signups for this whole workshop experience that'll cost about $1,000 per seat. So
Okay.
to sell 10 of those 2.5 months out. I'll pause there and I have more questions. But first of all, what do you think about the entire project and the goal? And the time frame for that would be pretty much as soon as I close it. He's very motivated to start soon. So like now-ish through the first one is going to be January 11th. That's the time frame to get 10 coaches and consultants in the door.
Between January 11th next year?
No. I'm sorry. Did I say January? My mind is going.
Yeah.
July. So
Oh,
it's
yeah,
2.5
okay.
months. July. 11th.
Yeah, so it's 90 days. Yeah, May, June. Yeah, so 2.5
Okay.
months.
And just refresh me here. The purpose of getting the 10 coaches is who will they be working with? Who will they be serving?
So what is the goal of those 10 coaches?
It's to attend this conference, Scott.
Okay.
Well, it's a workshop.
It's a workshop.
experience.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's a workshop that they would each pay $1,000 a piece.
And the outcome, so the outcome for them is, it's all this classic stuff you guys know well, like go from, burning out, serving clients personally, you're managing your team and you're in the weeds doing all the client work, burning out, no time for family, to having a skill set to create products, getting assistance with creating the products, and ultimately having a scalable business where you can earn income, not through just serving people individually. You have more options. That's the value that they get out of doing this.
Got it.
Okay. And are you going to be running the workshop or?
No, my prospective client is, once I sign this deal, I'm going to totally like hype it and rep who it is. But I think it's the right thing to wait till it's closed to say,
Yeah.
But he's the big expert. He has a PhD. He has a huge curriculum. He has a lot of experience doing these things for big organizations. So he's going to teach them how to do it. No, I'm not running the workshop, but I'm
Okay.
doing all the sales and marketing to get,
You're doing the sales and marketing for the workshop to help get the clients.
I'm
Got it.
creating the strategy and I'm pounding the pavement. And what's really important here is that the ROI for my prospective client is bigger than this one workshop. So he's going to be paying me over 2.5 months more than the $10,000 we're targeting to earn off of this. But he has, for example, an $100,000 consulting offer. And if he can sell 2 to 4 of those over the next year or so,
Yep.
then we're opening up a whole new line of business for him. And this is like a $200,000 to $400,000 opportunity over the longer term. So there's the workshop itself is going to be a net expense for him. Based
Got it.
on
It's
what
top,
we
all
said.
the workshop is, Janine, is top of funnel for him to sell his bigger consulting package.
Right.
Yes, and it's also an experiment to confirm our assumptions about this market.
Look, I like small tests to confirm. I love talking to potential customers early when you're trying to build a product like this. So I check, and I think your time frame's pretty realistic. It's not a year. It's also not 2 weeks. So 2.5 months to find 10 people interested. Think of it this way, Janine. To find 10, you're going to have to talk to 100.
Easy.
Thank you for saying that. I've been wondering what the KPI should
10%, 10%. Put it this way. The top salespeople in the world, and I have hired thousands of salespeople, the top salespeople in the world close 25% of every deal they touch. Most people close around 10%.
Yeah.
On average, it's between 10 and 25%. But I would say if you use 10% as a metric, you're going to be okay. If you're using 25, you're probably being too aggressive.
Yeah.
Scott, would you agree?
I would agree with that. I mean, I would say, probably 5%, is something that's realistic, because there's so many coaches out there. And, as a coach, I can tell you, we get hit up
a lot
constantly. I mean, I must delete 3-4 things a day.
Well,
Yeah.
the irony of this is that the coaches are on me to buy from them. They're a hugely accessible market segment. Anytime I message a coach, if I'm like, hey, can I talk to you about something I'm working on and get your take as to what you think about it? They're 100% going to jump on a call because they want me on their pipeline.
You're absolutely right. So yeah, Janine, if use 5 to 10%. So put it this way: in order to get 10, you're gonna have to talk to between 100 and 200 people total.
Okay.
That's to give you just an idea. So you've got 2 months to talk to 100 to 200 people. Let's call it 150. So you got to talk to 75 people a month for 2 months, or if you're doing 2.5 months, 60 people a month for 2.5 months. That's the number.
And the real ROI for them, is not the money. It's not $1,000.
You're absolutely right.
It's their time. Hey, you know what? If I spend 8 hours or 12 hours or whatever, however much time I'm going to spend on this, what's it really going to mean to me? And it's not really a money thing. It's really, how effective is my time really going to be spent in
Right.
working with this?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate the insight on the sales metric. I mean, I told Jim that's the client's first name, prospective client, not like you could find him on that. But I told him the biggest risk about this, because you guys could immediately see, based on your knowledge of this space, that the value proposition is obvious here. I told him the biggest risk is not that they don't want to do this or like don't see value in it. The biggest risk is what you guys just said about the number of people you need to talk to. The biggest risk is not getting enough conversations
That's
to
it.
hit our goal. I think that's a bigger risk, because the prospective client is like, oh, well, will they really want this? Yes. He has credibility. He has the capability. He has the curriculum. I'm confident. I mean, again, it has to be tested, but I'm confident that this value proposition is obvious for this market. But we have to get in front of enough of them. And here's kind of the irony. I don't know if you guys have come up against this, but it's like, okay, a person who is not selling on their own needs help with sales. But because they're not a salesperson, they don't understand that slog and lift to go from, I'm starting over in a brand new market and I have not been selling, and now I need to sell to them. He just doesn't understand what it takes to accomplish that, if that makes sense.
yeah, I get it.
It's where you come in.
That's
It
right.
is. So, and then I have kind of a more like nitty gritty. Well, first of all, that's what you said. What you guys said is good on the sales conversation. For the sales is good. I have to figure out some of the marketing KPIs to figure out like how to measure if the marketing is effective. But I can probably figure that out on my own between Google and ChatGPT. The question really for you guys when it comes to like getting the deal done itself as well is, as I revisit the business model canvas and try to improve it ahead of actually starting this engagement, the prospective client seems to not really also understand all the costs. So there's more that we need than just spending money on LinkedIn ads. So for example, lately.ai is going to be important for taking long form videos and articles and turning it into content that can be posted daily and those sort of things. And like, if I'm going to use all of my in-mails from Sales Navigator on this, he needs to be paying for my Sales Navigator. So the question really is like, how or at what point do I manage these costs? Because I didn't talk about these specific line item type costs in my proposal I already sent him, but I need to make sure that he's going to pay for anything we actually need during this project.
Hey, Janine, that's a lot to unpack, I think. So, you know what? We've got several people in the audience, and why don't you hang on? If we got some time toward the end,
That's
we'll
fine.
come
I
back.
know there's new people and people pitching and such, but that's really where I'm at. I have to figure out how to do this deal. But thank you for giving me the insight on the sales conversation and the
No problem,
encouragement
Jimmy.
that this is going to work. Yeah, thanks.
No problem, my friend.
Oh, hang with us, okay?
I will. Thanks.
All right,
Corey's
Corey.
back.
Corey, you're
Corey's
back.
back.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
You're still kind of breaking up a little bit. Go say a few more things, see if we got you.
Okay, let me turn off the headphones and see if that works.
Sure.
Yeah, you're coming in clear now.
Oh, okay, cool.
There you go. Perfect.
Just double checking. Cool. Okay. Sorry about that. I can go ahead and let me share the screen right here.
We're with you.
Okay.
Again, I just want to thank you both, Scott and Steve. This is my first time meeting you guys. I also just want to say thank you for allowing me to present and take the floor here and just share what I've been working on. I've been about 2 weeks of actually working on the project, and it's kind of turned into uh, the vision itself is coming together. So to introduce myself, my name's Corey. I've been trading for about 4 years. Last 4 years, I've been developing my skill set in trading, and then also in UX UI design or software design. And this goes back years before that. I live here in Dallas, and in 2017, I had this Jimmy Neutron moment with my idea of building a I want to build a phone and basically operating software for the tablet. And I got the opportunity to go pitch this at Modus Staffing Agency. And one of my friends, he's a manager there. He ended up allowing me to come visit. And as soon as I got there, one of his staff members just yelled, "Pitch it!" And I ended up pitching this idea and going through just a natural process of ideation and gathering feedback, and it just led me down a natural path. And years later, I learned that there's a career path called UX UI design. So I went back to school, certified, and now that was in 2020. And years later, last 4 years, I've been developing myself. The whole reason I, decided to start trading is because I asked myself, learning from people like, and I think it's interesting, Scott, your last name's Kalick, and Travis Kalanick built Uber. And I, what I'm trying to communicate is Travis Kalanick, who built Uber, he and Steve Jobs, they built their companies and eventually were kicked out of their companies. And so just foresight, I asked myself, hey, how do I self-fund my own tech products? If I know they're going to cost 15, 25 million to actually build out, how can I do that where I pay for it? Because also in my entrepreneurship journey, I've had multiple companies where I've had, semi-successes, but I've also had failures. And one of the lessons I've learned from failures is I don't like having the internal guilt of loss and sharing that loss with my business partners, and it makes me feel internally guilty. And so, from a standpoint, better to my projects, and then if I fail, then I don't have to feel any guilt. And if I am successful, then great. Then I'm keeping the control to where what happened to those other, Steve and Travis, I'm trying to mitigate that risk. And so, with all that being said, started down a path of institutional management, which is proprietary trading. And what that is I'm actually that if y'all want to check it out, is to give a whole bunch of background information. And y'all can see my screen when I go. Y'all can see the.
We can see that, yeah. And you are breaking up a little bit on your audio, but
Oh,
right now it's kind of manageable, but you are breaking up a little bit. Now we can't hear you. Hey, Corey. So, hey, Steve, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Corey, we can't hear you. And I'm sorry, because I was very interested in what you said. And you said something that really resonated with me about founders. And that's, when a founder takes investor money and fails, some hit a spiral, of guilt, of shame. And it's a really interesting thing you talked about, and we've never really touched on it here. What's your take on that, Steve? Steve? All right. Okay.
Sorry, Scott, I was on mute.
Yeah, you are. What's your take on that?
I mean, look, I look at it this way. You're too early in the process to worry about it. Like, put it this way, if Travis Kalanick and Steve Jobs, who we mentioned, thought it like that, they would have never built their companies.
Right.
Like, you have to just throw caution to the wind, build the best company you can, and sometimes it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
And the reality is, in both of those cases, because I followed them both extensively and read books, and I was alive when both of them built those companies. In Steve Jobs' case, the reason he got thrown out of Apple the first time is they were a dramatic failure. The first Apple product was awful, and nobody bought it.
Right.
And in Travis Kalanick's place, he built a great company, but he went completely off the rails as a CEO and did things that you just can't do if you're a publicly traded company CEO. You just can't. And so I think that what happened to both of them, while you could say it's unfortunate, that's what happens in the, I like to say that's what happens in the NBA. Like, those are big kid rules. When you're a publicly traded company, they care about how you behave and results and quarterly results and cash flows. And that's just the way it works.
You're playing a big boy game at that point.
You're playing in, it's big kid school. And
you're
that just happens.
Right. You're strapping on the big boy pants.
That's the way it is, man. So I'm going to move, just so we can unshare his screen, I'm going to move Corey to the audience.
All right. And let's go, I think William. Let's go to William. And I apologize if someone was before William. But
Hi, William.
Hi there. It's nice to meet everybody. How's it going?
Nice
Good.
to
How are
meet
you?
sir. What are you
Doing
working on,
well.
William?
Well, my team and I are developing a new ecosystem of non-lethal training projectiles and rifles for law enforcement and military training. So globally, the total addressable market is probably between 70 to 100 million per year, although with government sales cycles, occasionally there will be $100 million contracts handed out. And my question for you all, I've got a couple of them, is that this is a dual use item. So we are, long term, we do anticipate the government and military sales to be 2 to 5 times more valuable than the civilian sales. But we do anticipate for the first 1 to 3 years, almost all revenue will be from the civilian side. So I was wanting to get your perspective on how we can pitch that to either angels or maybe like a VC micro fund.
So you see both commercial and, I'll call it, civilian applications for this.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I think you can take the TAM and break it into 2 categories, or you can just put one TAM with both categories, and then the TAM Samsung, which is sort of the standard way that startups pitch the market opportunity. And you could just show what pieces of that are commercial versus, I'll call it, civilian. There's probably a way to show it.
Okay. Do you think it would be useful to have a slide in the pitch deck showing the estimated revenue per segment over time?
So
Or
here's
would
what
that
I
be
think.
too much early on?
Scott, go ahead. I know what you're going to say, Scott, but go ahead. I want to hear it.
So the answer is yes and no. The answer is I always like to see it because it gives me a sense of what the founder's vision is. Like, how big are they thinking? That's what it gives me a sense of. The reality is it doesn't really mean anything other than that, because any investor is going to look at that if you're pre-revenue and say, hey, show me. This is a pipe dream. Show me. So anyway, that answers that question. Steve, I'll let you answer.
No, I think Scott, I was thinking the same thing. So put it this way, William, whatever number you put in there, whether it's 10 million or 100 million, we're all going to be wrong, because you don't know what it's going to be in 5 years.
Right.
It's impossible to predict. But what Scott's saying is he would like to see a vision for what you think it could be. And what I always like is I'm a back of the. I like to call it. It's an old school term called back of the napkin. I love
Mhm.
back of the napkin math. So when someone shows me a slide of $100 million in 5 years for their company, and they're like, "Well, this is just 1% of the market equals $100 million." I'm like, "Yeah, that's really shitty math. Like that's like second grade math. I'd like to see the high school math that says $100 million is 25,000 customers at an average customer revenue of $1,000, and this is the margin, and this is how we think about the business." And that would be about half to 1% of the market. But here's the math that gets me there. But more importantly, here's the next 12 months that sets up the next 5 years. I like to see founders be able to do that math.
Yeah.
Is that helpful, William?
And,
It is. Thank you.
and,
And I have a couple of
also it shows me the appetite
Right.
of the founder. Like, okay, you know what? This is what his appetite is. This is where he wants to get. This
Yep.
is, this is what he believes, which is really valuable. And, the other part that I wanted to touch on was, you've got both the military and the civilian side of this.
Yeah.
I think personally, um, I think it's easier to penetrate the military side, than it is the civilian side, and that's what I would focus on first. Because people in the government, they will listen. They'll sit down. They'll give you their time. They'll listen, and if it's something, you could potentially get a phase one contract, which if you can develop it, you can go to phase two, and then once you get phase two, you're on your way, and then you piggyback off that on the civilian side. So that's my take.
right on. Yeah, and I've definitely looked into the DoD SBIR and STTR open topics. Unfortunately, this is so far outside the box of anything that they're actively looking for that government funding isn't really viable at this point. So I'm definitely leaning more towards angels and possibly microfunds. But on the topic of seeking private funding, of course, I'm doing everything everyone should be doing customer interviews, getting NDAs, letters of intent, and whatnot. But my question is, as an investor, when you see someone approaching you and they have a mountain of customer interviews or a mountain of letters of intent, how strong of a piece of evidence is that to you actually? Because I'm sure it would be fairly easy for someone determined to kind of manufacture credibility.
I think everything helps, William. I think, user interviews are better than none. 5 letters of intent are better than no letters of intent. But, what ultimately is the true sign for guys like Scott and I, it's users and revenue, and specifically paying users. It's almost like when someone wants to come to me and say, "Well, I've got 5,000 people on a wait list." I'm like, "Great, any of them paying or using your product?" "Well, no, but they're on a wait list." I'm like, "Well, that doesn't tell me anything. It tells me you can fill up a wait list." I think everything is a better proof point. If you can get LOIs instead of just user interviews, that's better. If you can actually get a couple paying customers, that's even better. If they actually drive revenue, that's even better. So everything is a proof point along the way. And the more you can do, the more validation that is. But Scott, your take?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's better than not having them. It shows that you've done some work. It shows that you've put some thought into this. It shows that you're serious about what you're doing. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean that much because the proof in the pudding is, hey, have you sold these units? Have you made a profit on them? Do you have some type of subscription? Do you have some continual usage on this? Do you have some stream of income that you really have created and created a value in your business? And that's ultimately where you need to get. That's any founder needs to get there.
Right. And so to play off that with the continuous revenue, and this will be my last question. So there is no code involved with what we're doing other than the CAD software we're designing our products on. It is a purely physical product as a hardware plus consumables business model. Of course, both are proprietary. And based on the customer interviews and the letters of intent we have so far, it looks like the average user is going to spend roughly twice as much on the consumables as they do on the hardware annually. Do you think, I have a couple angels that are genuinely interested and want to see where we can get as far as the prototype development before putting anything in. But as far as traditional venture capital goes, do you think there is any interest at all in something that is purely hardware?
Define interest. I mean, the venture capitalists, they may give you their time because if you're pre-revenue, because they may look at it and say, hey, can I steal your idea somehow? Can I move it over? But are they going to actually be serious about saying, hey, let's schedule another meeting and talk about writing you a check? Not going to happen. Not a pre-revenue. And Steve, you disagree with me. I spent enough time together.
No, I'm with you. I mean, William, hard tech especially and hardware. It's challenging because it is capital intensive and it takes a lot to just get to a prototype. And a lot of times, you'll have to raise it in tranches. You'll have to do a small angel round or friends and family round to get to that first prototype so you can prove that this is something that people want. It's really it's a harder path because of the hard tech element. But I do agree with Scott. At that phase, people will take your call, but they're probably not going to write a check. And what I hate to see founders do is wasting time with, just on stuff that honestly you probably could put a better use of your time talking to some angels to get to try to get that prototype built. I do agree with Scott on that front. But there are VCs that hard tech. If you can get to that prototype, there are VCs that will take your call and look at your traction.
Right on. Thank you all very much. That's all I had.
Thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate you.
Come back and see us again.
Will do.
All right, let's.
Hey, Scott,
Is
is it all right if I interrupt right quick?
We can barely hear you, man.
Hey, Scott, Steve, I wanted to interrupt right quick, if that's all right, and ask if I can say a few words before I go. I have to go ahead and check out here.
Sure, man.
Hey, I want to say thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for allowing me on here and allowing me to present. And I would like to share something of value for you guys. I know y'all were talking about Bitcoin. If y'all have investments here, this might just be some data and information that you may or may not be interested in. Just from a from historical analysis. Here's the chart of Bitcoin. Can y'all see the trading view chart?
Yes, sir.
So historically, after the halving event, based on the data here, it jumps between 5 and 10% the week after, and then the month after, it ranges. And so what I'm trying to communicate is right now I'm long on Bitcoin, and it's already hit the 5% mark, and it hasn't hit the 10% yet, which is at around 70,000. And then you got a order block above that, so you can expect some sell pressure around 70,000. And just want to share that. And then I also wanted to share as well before I go, I maybe for another meeting, I would like to show you guys this prototype that I've taken the time to build. And it's there's a vision to it. So I definitely would like to see if we can possibly meet again and review this. My laptop's just about to die. And so,
Sure, man.
Oh, come
We're
on.
here we're
every
here
Monday
Monday night
night.
from 8 to 9.
Yeah, come on. Would love. I'd love to see this. This looks really interesting, and I'd love to see it. So, come on back.
okay.
Yeah,
I will.
your audio is like crapping out here. So
Yeah.
let's Matthew, you've been very patient. Thank you for being with us again.
Hey, Matthew, good to see you
Always
again.
good to see you.
Of course, good to see you guys. How you guys doing?
Can't complain for Monday. What's the latest, man?
Yeah. So I actually been looking into some new projects. First, just have like a quick question, then I'll kind of segue into what I'm looking to building next. As far as like building products with like, do you guys think it makes sense to build products that already have a market that exists, or go towards something where you actually have to build that market? Like, what's your kind of perspective around that?
I think building something where a market already exists can be easier and faster, but building something where you're creating a new market could have bigger upside at times. It just depends. Scott, what do you think?
I mean, it's a really difficult question to answer. It all depends on what, are you building a better mousetrap, or are you building something the world has never seen before? I mean, it can go either way. It's just, if you're building something the world has never seen before, you got to be the evangelist. You got to be out there all the time promoting yourself and getting yourself out there. And yeah, the opportunity could be phenomenal, but you got to make it happen.
I mean, Matthew, both can work. So, example, Google wasn't the first search engine. It was like the eighth. There was like 8 other search engines before Google, and now Google is one of the biggest companies in the world. Versus Uber, no one had ever seen anything like Uber, and they created an entirely new market that has decimated the taxi industry.
Sure.
Both can work. Both have been wildly successful. It's just 2 different paths.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Makes sense. But yeah, to kind of give you like a brief update here, I've kind of set my nightlife app to the side for now, and just kind of looking to focus on some other things, and then potentially revisit it at a later date.
Sure.
But what I'm looking into right now is I'm really fascinated within the college market. I think that it's easy to do a very a sniff test as far as products and things in that market, because it's such a dense group of people all in one kind of segment in one area. But what I'm looking into is basically an Instacart type service for college care packages. So what that means is, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, etc., friends of college students, instead of you getting items yourself, putting a care package together and sending it to your student and shipping it, how I'm kind of envisioning it is we would basically curate items from local businesses in that college town. So how that would initially work is we would hire college students to pick up those items, package them, and deliver them on campus. So one that that definitely cuts out the time as far as any delivery fees. And let's say you are a bad parent or something, you forget your child's birthday, and you're like, oh, I want to send them a care package last minute. You can do that and get that same day. As far as like the revenue piece, obviously there's small margins with any type of delivery service, DoorDash, Uber Eats, those type of business models. But what I'm thinking here is that we would charge these small businesses a listing fee to be on our platform, to have our consumers choose from and select for as far as their items. And then as far as the actual physical care package box itself, we would sell ad space. And what I mean is like there are a ton of brands that want to appeal to that college demographic. So whether that be through a discount QR code on our box or just an ad in general, that's kind of where the revenue piece would come from. And as of now, I've spoken to some some like brands like tequila brands and seltzer brands that kind of want to infiltrate that college market, and they've been quite interested just because the fact of the distribution into that market, and I think it's something that's somewhat easily scalable. So just want to get some thoughts around that and see what you guys think and any potential pitfalls you think I might run into.
Look, I think it's a space that has a number of people that could execute on this really easily.
For sure.
The biggest one is known as Amazon. They have distribution. They have every product you could possibly put into a care package. They already do packaging at Christmas time. They charge for it. You can personalize it. So I think about that and how that impacts your ability to make margin. My concern, Matthew, when you said at the beginning, my concern in this would be margin.
Sure.
How do you get this to 50+% margin as opposed to being a good top line revenue opportunity, but like single digits when it comes to margin after you've paid everybody. That would be my thought. Scott, what do you think?
I mean,
Because you're not packaging any of your own products, Scott. You're reselling someone else's.
right. I like that you're going to campuses and you're getting a very eager workforce. And it's a workforce that can perform for you, that'll do just about anything you want them to. So I like that part of it. Whether or not you have something that will excite the public, that will be able to get out there, I think that's the real question. And I think it's something that probably doesn't have a real huge barrier to entry. So it's probably something that you can test out without probably, bankrupting yourself, to see whether, you really have something that'll go. So.
Yeah, I mean, how I'm kind of envisioning this is like, I don't think this is something that I would, run forever and try to build a huge company. I think this is something that I would sell, off like a GoPuff or DoorDash, Instacart, because this is easily something that can be an additional feature. But to your point, Steve, that's a very valid point as far as, there's a low barrier to entry. That's easy for like an Amazon or any of those other on-demand service I mentioned to easily implement this with, very little problems. So I definitely understand that piece.
Yeah.
I mean, you could. I mean, this is just an idea. I mean, Matt, you're in. Are you in the Carolinas, right?
Yeah, correct.
I mean, you got enough colleges there. You could literally create this just for your local college consortiums and only market it to those universities and almost brand it for those colleges, almost like a white label type thing where it would appear that the college was the one doing it.
Sure.
And they may even pay you a licensing fee to do that, and you are handling the back end of it. You almost build it like a services business. That this maybe isn't a venture scale business you go raise money for. This might become a services business that allows you to make a really nice buck and a nice income by servicing your local colleges with some sort of a white label offering. Scott, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I had about 35 colleges under contract when I was running my company. And, I think the one nice thing about colleges is that it's pretty easy to get in and talk to somebody there.
Right.
There's a lot of levels. So, it's pretty easy to get in and talk to them and bounce the ideas off them. I mean, that's the upside. The downside is they're not business people, so they don't really get business. So a lot of times you're talking to them and they're like, "Oh, that sounds great," but they have really no clue about, hey, what it takes to run a business or what a profit is or really anything about it. But um, if they're interested, there's an opportunity, probably to go and see the business director. And my experience with the business director is that they really weren't too busy too often. So they were pretty easy to get in to see. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think at least in the early stages, I think the best part is I don't necessarily have to work directly with these colleges. I can, easily reach out to college kids at university and say, hey, do you want to help me with this project in
Sure.
time? And most college kids, they don't have money. They'll most likely at least try it out once and kind of see how it goes.
yeah.
You're absolutely right. Almost like, yeah, I mean, a lot of companies create ambassador programs where they actually pay students sort of a commission for any people they get to help them with signups or to get users on the platform. So there's a way to do this that's pretty low cost but high touch.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Matthew, great to see you, my
Come
friend.
back and see us again.
Likewise.
All right. Hey, Yikes. Nice to see you. How are you tonight? You're on mute.
Yes,
go.
I was on mute. I think I'm good now. You got me?
You good.
are good now.
Sweet. Yeah, let's see. Well, I guess in terms of what I'm in the middle of troubleshooting some infrastructure that I am running for one blockchain. But I guess like interesting news right now is not directly related to launching anything myself, but I am now, well, kind of. I guess I am doing, yeah, like I signed a contract to do community management, community building with a Web3 project that's just sort of getting started with their launch in the next couple weeks. I am kind of like looking forward to that and like actually being on an actual software team instead of just like me and my friends hacking on stuff. Um, and so far it's been interesting. But I'm hoping that it turns out well. And then yeah, I actually of course right when like right when one opportunity arrives, then all the other ones arrive simultaneously, and you can't pick them all at the same time. It's very annoying. But I have an embeddings related hackathon that I got a decent bit of interest from like a community where most of the people are like fairly technical. So if I can pull off organizing that event while also handling everything that I need to handle for the community building for the other project, then I think that would probably be like I think we'd get like some real submissions on that one in terms of the whole like hackathons and events thing that I'm hopefully going to try and keep going while I am doing this like contract gig. But yeah, I've been sort of like freestyling on how to like in terms of like how to approach pitching and stuff like that, and these guys have like done like have a formula for how they approach that. So I'm hoping that I can like learn a little bit from like how they're approaching their VC and funding and investor communications strategy kind of thing. So yeah, I guess that's just a general overview of where I'm at. If there's anything interesting in any of those.
Well, I mean, the one thing I kind of took away from what you said was, that you're looking for a way to pitch. Um, and Steve, I'd love your take on this because my take is there's no how to on how to pitch. There's nobody who's going to write a book that is going to work for everybody on how to pitch. I mean, essentially, you got to show up authentically as yourself. You got to show some passion. You got to show a vision, and and you got to take it from there. I mean, you got to be prepared, but as far as a how-to, I don't really know that there can be one or there is one. What do you think on that, Steve?
Look, I think that you said it. Like there's table stakes, and you have to be authentic. You have to be yourself. There are some basics. The big one for me is figure out how to tell your story in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
If you can't tell your story in 3 minutes, you're saying too much.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And think of it, the pitches. I'll tell you what. This is sometimes the way to figure out how to pitch is telling people what not to do. Like, don't do a 10-minute pitch. Don't do 20 slides. Every bad pitch I see, Scott, is like, okay, this is a massive problem. It's really friggin' big, and we're going to own the world, and no one's doing what we're doing. Well, the reality is someone probably is doing what you're doing. Every friggin' pitch deck I get, it's a massive problem, and the market's big. The question really is, what are you doing, Scott, to solve this problem in a unique way that's only unique to you, that others haven't figured out, that has some virality to it to the point where people are willing to pay for it, and it's growing really fast. That's really it. And if you can figure that out and tell it in your way, being authentic, that's really what really resonates with people.
Yeah. And and how do you sell it? I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, because there's lots of people with good ideas, but they're never going to be able to get in front of people and they don't want to, you know.
And right, and I have it all the time. Founders are like, "Well, I'm not a salesperson." I
Right.
said, "Well, I'm sorry, you're the founder of the freaking company. Like in an early stage startup, everybody sells."
Well,
You gotta
exactly.
sell.
I think that's kind of as like the community person, I'm like trying to figure out like, okay, if I'm in charge of community strategy, what's our overall strategy for how we're just like what how we're going to do marketing because the team that I jumped on, they have they're very engineering heavy.
Sure.
And so like the core people that are working on it we're kind of all wearing hats, but we have kind of a main thing. And then but yeah, so I'm like, what is interesting to me and what I kind of got to figure out is like I've been around the tech long enough where I know the tech is like solid and kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But how do I communicate that and like how do I build a community around the cool things that it can do and then have that grow really fast, which is what the like I guess probably CEO I guess is kind of focused on. They're like, we need to hit this really hard because we want to get to like we want to go from 0 to like 10K users in a couple of months. And I'm like, that's pretty ambitious. The tech is there where if you can effectively communicate to people how this is useful, then if you could tell that to like 30,000 people, you could probably get 10,000 of them.
Right.
But the strategy of like how to communicate that and then how to do like community building around something that effectively communicates that and just generally kind of the way to approach things in the Web3 space as opposed to like the traditional like Web2 space, because I guess that's sort of my wheelhouse as well. Are going to be questions that I have to figure out, I guess.
Right.
All right. Well, thank
Cheers.
you. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Hey, Kunal, thanks for being with us. I'm sorry we didn't get to you. Come on, first thing next week, next Monday, we'll get you on. You're important. We want to know what's on your mind. We want to see your ideas. Come on back. And to everybody else, thank you for being with us. Sincerely appreciate it. The hour flew. It really did. It was a great hour. So
Hey, to you guys, Steve and Scott. So, are you possibly willing to talk to me offline this week? If there was a clear outcome, I would potentially be willing to pay for a coaching session. I don't have an unlimited budget. In fact, I'd be sort of like pulling the money out of the air in a sense, but this is really important to me. Like these things around making sure that the client is committing to cover the costs. Like if that's something that you feel like you're able to help with, I'm open, whichever one or both of you. I don't know if you have time or like what would make
Sure.
sense.
sure. You've got my email, and I think you can text me. I'll give you some times, and happy to spend some time with you.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate that.
Okay.
I'm trying to
right.
get it done quickly. Yeah, talk to you soon.
Okay. Have a great week, everybody.
You too.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right, that's it for me. Like I said, I have to go shoot some infrastructure, and I don't know if you are watching this, then you will likely hear about what project I'm talking about very, very soon. But yeah, anyway, I will see y'all in the future if there are any people. I don't know if there is any people. I only see my own test message, so it's all